Who's coming?
Airlock breach.
When talking about sci-fi, and especially sci-fi horror, there are a few names and films that loom large over it, like a massive shadow that appears to have no end. In this video, I want to talk about Prometheus from 2012. It has been over a dozen years since its release. I'm very curious to see how it has aged for viewers and fans of the franchise, especially with Alien Romulus being released. Prometheus is a film that had a huge shadow surrounding it, perhaps even suffocating it. But before we can climb aboard Prometheus, there is much to discuss beforehand. Enter director Ridley Scott, a man that has crafted some of the best and most legendary films of all time. The Alien franchise is known to people all over the world, and for good reason. Since 1979's Alien, the xenomorph has scared the hell out of the masses and also gained the fandom that most creatures in film will never ever come close to. The '79 classic showcased the blue-collared crew of the Nostromo under the command of Captain Arthur Dallas, played by Tom Skerritt. His crew included Ash, Lambert, Parker, Brett, Kane, and Ellen Ripley, played by Sigourney Weaver, who would become the star character of the franchise for decades. Scott was able to make this film a very down-to-earth sci-fi horror masterclass, full of atmosphere, tension, and terror. Ripley was the lone survivor at the end of the film. Many movies later, some that were great and some that were okay, the franchise was in disarray and seemed to have run out of creativity and sting, and that's where Prometheus comes in. The name Prometheus comes from Greek mythology. He was a titan who defied the gods and gave humanity fire, for which he was subjected to eternal punishment. This is, of course, part of the theme of this movie. We come into an amazing shot of a vast landscape full of beauty, peace, and promise. The score of the film by Mark Steitenfeld enhances that promise, a youthful, enduring promise. A body of water reveals a powerful waterfall, and that reveals a craft in the air. Next, we see a monk-like humanoid with a container of something. He drinks it in a ritualistic way, gazing upwards, and almost immediately afterwards, he coughs and shakes with pain. We realize that what he ingested is breaking down every internal part down to the cells. This being is dissolving and falls into the body of water as its DNA breaks down even more and reforms. This suggests how life began on the planet. The story moves forward to Scotland in 2089, and we meet our two leads, Shaw and Holloway. They find something amazing in a cave, a painting of a large being pointing towards a specific configuration of stars. This quote-unquote map is similar to several others that have been found from unconnected cultures all over the planet. Elizabeth Shaw, played by Noomi Rapace, interprets it as an invitation from these human forerunners called engineers to go find them. We find ourselves aboard a scientific vessel, the Prometheus, at the end of a 4-year faster-than-light journey following the star map to a distant moon, LV-223. This is not LV-426, which was the moon that Ripley and the Nostromo crew landed on in the 1979 film. The Prometheus is a ship that appears to be top of the line. It's sleek, bright, clean, and full of tech. Now, this is a stark contrast to what we've seen in Scott's Alien, which takes place 30 years after the events of this film. The Nostromo is beat up, it's dark, its tech seems to be bare bones and somewhat outdated. Ridley Scott has said that this is because the Prometheus was funded by Peter Weyland directly. In other words, the money talks, and the Prometheus was funded by a rich CEO with dreams of discovering the origins of life. We then are introduced to the character that truly drives this film, and that's David, the synthetic who is much different than any other artificial person that we've seen in the franchise.
Big things have small beginnings.
Played by Michael Fassbender, and he gave a great performance in the role that begs many questions. Let's explore this. We see David, quote-unquote, manning the ship while the crew are in cryosleep. He works out, takes inventory of the ship, watches old films, and he studies languages. Of particular note, he watches the dreams of Elizabeth Shaw. There seems to be a very human-like curiosity in what he does. This is to foreshadow of what's to come. Once the ship arrives to the moon, the crew are awakened. We are introduced to Mission Director Meredith Vickers, Captain Janek, Fifield, Milburn, and the rest.
What is our purpose? What happens when we die? And I have finally found two people who have convinced me they're on the verge of answering them. Doctors Holloway and Shaw, if you would please stand.
Once they land, the crew explores an artificial cave-like structure and find a giant humanoid statue, the remains of what they call the engineers, and numerous stone cylinders. But that's not the fun part. Shaw recovers a head to study later. All of this is mysterious, ominous, and yet alluring. Fifield and Milburn decide to leave and return to the ship. They are not interested in these engineers or what became of them. Of course, this begs the question of why join the scientific expedition in the first place. Both of these characters have issues that many viewers get stuck on, rightly so in many regards. They do some really stupid things.
Oh yeah, it's getting tighter. I ain't touching it. I don't want to touch it. Touch the thing, man. For God's sake, don't be. God, you're making it worse. It's tightening. It's it's breaking my arm. Cut it off. Cut it off.
Then again, so does Holloway. He is portrayed as a very emotional and impatient character.
Daylight, why don't you leave it till the morning?
Oh, no. It's Christmas, Captain. And I want to open my presents.
Woo! Come on, you ready to do this? I know you are.
That's all well and good, but if you're on an alien planet and take the chance of removing your helmet without exact certainty of safety, then you are outrageously dumb. Anyway, all of this is happening while a storm is starting to come towards the structure and the Prometheus. Janek alerts Shaw and company to return to the ship immediately. David decides to secretly take one of the mysterious cylinders and bring it with him. An android who has an agenda? Programmed that way? Or operating within his own emotional spectrum? It is difficult to say at this point, but one thing is for sure. David has a perspective that defines him beyond the synthetics that we've been accustomed to. Shaw runs tests on the engineer head, and it is found that its DNA matches humans, which validates Holloway and Shaw's theory that the engineers are the alien ancestors of human beings. All the while, Vickers has a strange encounter with David. She wants to know what someone, he, said to David. It is here that more questions come into play about her motivations as well as David's. She throws him against the wall and is able to hold him there. Now wait a moment. How could she do that to an android? David's strength far outclasses a human. This is the heart of the Vickers being a synthetic theory. She shows little to no emotion. She comes out of cryosleep before everyone else, and also her med pod was calibrated for a male.
Are you a robot?
My room. 10 minutes.
Let's go back to the cryosleep point. If she were a synthetic, then why would she need to be in suspended animation? Well, we have seen synthetics do human things to fit in many times in the Alien franchise. Even David says to Holloway that he wears a helmet to make the humans feel more comfortable around him. Also, in the original Alien, we see that Ash was also in cryosleep with the rest of the Nostromo crew. This was to better hide his true nature. Is this what Weyland intended all along? A sleeper android agent in the midst? It makes a ton of sense in that respect. Show David as a synthetic, and right beside him in plain daylight, Vickers masquerades as the true artificial threat. David says that he was told to try harder. This sets up a very dark scene where David shows his deviousness. Opening the cylinder, he takes out some of the black goo. It's not hard to figure out what he would do next. Throughout the movie, Holloway has shown a high level of disregard and disrespect to David. Charlie is feeling down and depressed about the engineers being extinct and decides to drink his troubles away. David spikes a drink with the black goo and offers it to Charlie. He also makes a very good point about creation and the reason to do it in the first place. Holloway and Shaw have sex after she laments on how she's not able to have children. Meanwhile, in the structure, Fifield and Milburn continue to show a level of stupidity that might have been enough to knock this film down 3 pegs to being almost mediocre. The black goo appears to combine with the DNA of a host and vastly change it into a monstrous and violent hybrid. The 2 scientists see a snake-like creature, which by all accounts was one of the small worms seen earlier near the cylinders. I have absolutely no idea why, but Milburn wants to reach out and touch the creature. It attacks him, breaks his arm, and sprays a corrosive fluid on Fifield, destroying his mask and making him fall into a puddle of the black goo. The crew return to the structure to look for Milburn and Fifield. David sets off to find one of the probes that is glitching, but showing a life form. Milburn's lifeless body is found by Shaw, Holloway, and Janik. Shaw sees that Holloway is infected, and they plan to return to the ship immediately for medical attention. David follows the probe and finds a control room with a holographic star map directed towards Earth, and even more importantly, he finds an engineer that is still alive but in stasis. This scene is beautiful and something that's impressive to witness in the genre. At the same time, Holloway is being rushed to the ship, but Vickers is prepared to stop him from boarding the Prometheus. Charlie gives himself up to the flamethrower as Vickers destroys him. Shaw is shown to be on a medical table and revealed to be 3 months pregnant even though she's infertile. This leads to the scene of the film, in my opinion. Elizabeth goes to the med pod to remove a creature from her abdomen. This scene was so difficult to watch, but so well done. It is a scene that you'll never forget and truly pulse-pounding. Noomi Rapace makes you feel every ounce of pain that she's enduring. The important thing to note, this is the first and only survivor story after being impregnated in this franchise. She finds a room with David and discovers that Weyland is alive. He was in stasis the entire time and plans to go to the engineer to ask for a way to avoid death. A completely mutated Fifield returns to the Prometheus infected by the black goo, and he violently attacks and kills several crew members before he's killed. Captain Janik thinks that the structure that they visited is an engineer military base where they lost control of a biological weapon. He also figures out that the structure houses a huge spacecraft, and this sets up the finale where David, Weyland, and Shaw go to the control chamber to wake up the engineer and ask what Weyland believes is the only real question that matters. That question obviously doesn't mean the same to the engineer because he proceeds to murderize every single person there. He beheads David, strikes and kills Weyland, and only Shaw escapes by being smart enough to run. Everyone finally realizes what we've guessed an hour ago. The structure is the derelict ship, and the engineer is ready to head out and complete its mission to Earth and use the bioweapon on it. Elizabeth tells Janik that he has to stop the ship. He accepts his fate and tells Vickers she better take off in an escape pod. The Prometheus rams into the derelict, to stop it from launching into space. Vickers' pod lands, and she shows us how running in a straight line is not a good idea when trying to avoid being crushed. Shaw is attacked by the engineer, but luckily she unleashes the creature that she almost birthed, which is now a humongous squid-like thing. It overtakes and kills the engineer. My. It looks very reminiscent of a facehugger. More on that in a minute. Shaw retrieves David's head and body as he says he knows where there's another ship that they can use to escape. Shaw tells David she doesn't want to go home. She wants to go where the engineers come from. She still wants the answers to her questions. The paradise, their homeworld, that's where she wants to go. The last shot, the stinger, shows the engineer shaking violently, and then a xenomorph explodes out of his chest. Known as the Deacon, this is the first contact with the alien in the franchise as we know it. The Deacon was referred to as a proto-xenomorph or ultramorph in an early script by John Spates called Alien Engineers. This script was rewritten by Damon Lindelof, which saw the creature being named Deacon. A mural is seen of the Deacon, possibly a xenomorph, in the alien temple earlier in the film, indicating either the Deacon's birth was foretold or it is not the first of its species. Has Prometheus gotten better over time, or does it still divide fans? I've always been fascinated by this movie, even with its flaws. Did I want to see xenomorphs? Of course I did, but the journey presented here was a welcomed breath of fresh air. I truly believe Ridley Scott does amazing work in the sci-fi genre. The central question in the film is why were humans created? This whole movie was a quest for the answers to that question, a chance to meet our makers and understand the reason for our being. We never get that answer, or do we? The scene with David and Charlie might be the answer or the beginnings of the answer that the characters as well as ourselves are looking for. Charlie said we created synthetics because we could. Perhaps in Prometheus, that is the same reason behind the engineers creating mankind. Some form of experiment? A chance to see what would become of man? This also transitions into why they wanted to destroy us, as Shaw wants to know. She said, "Why do you hate us?" Well, Elizabeth, is it really that hard to understand? In the movie, we see a microcosm of mankind. Those with kind hearts, those that are absolutely cold-hearted, and those that will do anything to further their own selfish goals, even if it means to murder another. All of this is on display, even in an environment of scientific exploration. Imagine the angles of mankind you encounter on Earth where there are no bounds to what we do. Perhaps engineers saw us as a failure and wanted to erase their mistake. Here's another theory that is just as daunting. Maybe the engineers saw the possibilities in us to surpass them someday. Mankind might evolve beyond engineers, which suggests a type of jealousy. If we are engineered from them, then the downfalls of man could be extensions of the engineers as well. Hate, greed, jealousy, violence, and the list goes on. Prometheus asks a lot of questions and makes you think if you choose to do so. Ridley Scott was tired of the formula that he manifested in 1979 and wanted to push forward with the world and what inhabited it. Many fans were not ready for this change. They wanted to see the xenomorph ripping apart characters as it had done in 6 previous films. Think about that for a moment. 6 previous films of that formula. Scott decided to give us something new and different. There's definitely a through line with the crew and the Titan Prometheus. The search for answers and going against God caused unfortunate consequences, in this case, death. The crew found that out the hard way, and Shaw is still on her mission for those answers. One more thought is about the black goo and its relation to mankind. The black goo is a biological weapon that breaks down DNA and reforms it. In the opening scene, it broke the engineer down and reformed him to evolve into us. But later, as humans come into contact with the goo, it breaks them down into monsters. Does that make mankind monsters born from the engineers? Questions with many possibilities. Ridley started the conversation. Maybe someday we can finish it.